The room is quiet, except for one sound, a woman breathing through pain that feels older than history. In hospitals, in homes, in tents, in huts. Across every culture and every century, the cry of childbirth has echoed the same question. Why does bringing life into the world hurt this much? For thousands of years, many have whispered the same answer. It's the curse. God said to Eve, "I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth." But what if we misunderstood that verse? What if the pain is not the whole story? And what if Hebrew women God, His own covenant people, didn't experience childbirth the way we assume they did? Tonight, we're not just chasing myths, we're chasing meaning. Because this question doesn't just touch theology, it touches blood, breath, and the bodies of women everywhere. Genesis tells us the story in a single sentence, but the weight of it has been carried by generations. After the fall, God speaks to Eve. And the English translation most of us know says, "I will greatly increase your pain in childbirth." But the original Hebrew text forces us to slow down and look closer. The word translated as pain is asterisk. Etziv, asterisk. An asterisk. Etziv, asterisk, doesn't only mean physical pain. It means sorrow, toil, emotional anguish. It's a struggle that weighs on the soul. In fact, it has the exact same word used just a few verses later to describe Adam's relationship with the ground. He will work the soil in asterisk. Etziv, asterisk in toil and sorrow. The ground wasn't cursed to physically stab him with pain every second he farmed. It was cursed to resist him, to produce thorns and thistles, to make his labor difficult and frustrating. So here's the first twist in our story. The text doesn't say Eve would suddenly feel physical pain where none existed before. It says her experience of bringing forth life would be multiplied, layered with struggle, fear, vulnerability, and sorrow. Childbirth itself was never described as painless, not even in Eden. What changed was the context. Before the fall, life flowed in harmony with God. After the fall, life would now come through tension, through a world marked by separation and struggle. And that single shift changes everything. Now, let's go even deeper. In the book of Exodus, when Pharaoh orders the Hebrew midwives to kill all newborn boys, something really strange is recorded. The midwives give Pharaoh an excuse, saying, "Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive." This one line has sparked centuries of debate. Were Hebrew women somehow biologically different? Did they feel less pain? Or were they simply stronger, more experienced, or maybe more supported by their community? Ancient Jewish writings and traditions suggest something fascinating. The difference wasn't biological, it was cultural. Hebrew women lived differently, they labored differently, they ate differently. Most importantly, they birthed surrounded by community, not in isolation. They weren't strapped to beds and told to fight against their own bodies. They moved. They squatted. They breathed. They trusted the process. And trust changes pain. Modern medical research now confirms what ancient cultures seemed to know instinctively. Fear intensifies pain. When we're afraid, our stress levels skyrocket, our muscles tighten, and the whole process becomes harder. Isolation makes suffering feel 100 times worse. Pain isn't just a physical sensation. It's neurological, it's emotional, and it's spiritual. So, when the midwives said Hebrew women gave birth quickly, it might not have been because they felt an absence of pain, but because they felt an absence of fear. And where did fear come from? It entered the human story at the exact same moment sin did. But there's another layer here that few people talk about. God never says that this pain, this asterisk, etziv, asterisk, in childbirth, would last forever. In the Bible, curses often describe the natural consequences of our actions, not permanent, unchangeable destinies. And throughout the entire biblical narrative, we see God constantly working to undo the effects of the fall. The prophet Isaiah speaks of a new reality where a woman gives birth before her labor pains even begin. In the New Testament, Jesus himself describes the joy that completely overtakes the pain of labor. The Apostle Paul writes that all of creation groans in labor pains but that this groaning leads to glory. Pain is not the final word. It is the passage. And then, when Christ comes, he does something absolutely astonishing. He takes the curse into his own body. The thorns and thistles meant for Adam become a crown of thorns pressed into his head. The blood, sweat, and agony associated with Eve's curse become the labor pains of redemption, tearing through his flesh on the cross. The cross is not separate from the curse. It is God himself stepping right into the middle of it to overcome it. This leads us to the most uncomfortable, but also the most beautiful truth of all. The pain of childbirth is not a punishment. It is a participation. It is a participation in the act of creation, a participation in the kind of suffering that produces new life. It's participation in a grand story where pain is never, ever meaningless. And that reframes everything. The narrative shifts from God made women suffer to God entered our suffering to bring forth life. So, did Hebrew women feel no pain? No, they felt pain. But they were not ruled by it. They were not told that their bodies were broken or flawed. They were not taught to fear the very process God had designed. They labored with hope, with movement, with faith, and with the support of their community. And maybe the greatest tragedy of our modern world is not that childbirth hurts, but that we've disconnected it from its meaning. Because pain without meaning breaks people, but pain with a purpose transforms them. So perhaps the real question isn't, why does childbirth hurt? But rather this: what happens when we stop seeing pain as a curse and start seeing it as a doorway, a sacred doorway through which new life enters the world? Again and again and again. Thanks for watching. If this video gave you a new perspective, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that goes beyond the surface. We'll see you in the next one.